Our first speaker is a guy, Padraig O'Maonaigh, from the Irish Neutrality Campaign, who have been hugely active campaigning on the ground against the incursions of NATO warships into Irish territorial waters over the last number of years. It's been horrific abuse of our territorial sovereignty. We saw that with the incursion of the US military planes using Shannon over the last 20 years. Been horrific stuff going on. But Padraig and the Irish Neutrality Campaign, so just put your hands together for Padraig O'Maonaigh. Thanks.
Thanks to Peter Dooley for being the driving force behind the grassroots Stop the War initiative. It's great to see somebody take the initiative and get us all out here, because we need to make this grow. As he said, I'm the speaker here today for the Irish Neutrality Campaign, which was launched last year in response to the Irish government ratcheting up its erosion of Irish neutrality in the context of the conflict in Ukraine. We support the calls for peace and an end to the avoidable and unnecessary human suffering. We believe that both parties to the conflict have responsibilities to end it, and all support should be directed to that end, and not to warmongering calls for victory on either side. There are no victors, as Peter says, in war, only losers, and it's the working people who carry the burden every time. I am also a contributor to the recently launched Irish Neutrality League. Such is my personal concern for Irish neutrality and future generations of Irish people that I'm involved in two groups on this issue. And what's quite apparent to me is that while Ireland has a small but dedicated number of activists in promoting peace and neutrality, we have quite a lot of groups. And I think we should do what we can to work together with our limited resources to build a proper grassroots movement, to put real pressure on the establishment, and today is very encouraging in that regard. Let's be honest, Irish neutrality is in a very bad place. Last year we had 5 NATO warships visit Ireland, which stopped in Cork in blatant breaches of neutrality. Armed vessels from Canada, Holland, France, Belgium and a British warship, all armed to varying degrees, opposed by a small number of activists. The tireless and enduring activism of PANA and Shannon Watch in highlighting US military activities as Shannon for much of the last 20 years have exposed the collaboration of successions of Irish government with the US imperial war machine, which has visited death and destruction on the Middle East and millions of deaths. And now we see the Irish government provide overt military assistance in the support of the Ukraine army. We ask, why does the Irish government feel like making a military intervention in this conflict, yet sits on the sidelines often in silence, when the question of other conflicts as in Yemen and Palestine are raised? The answer is that successive Irish governments are complicit in war. This is not representative of the wishes of the Irish people. Neutrality remains consistently the will of the people, as regularly seen in media polls. For example, a poll recently in the Irish Times records 54% in opposition to provide military assistance to Ukrainian forces, with only 32% in favour. Sadly, the will of the Irish people is not foremost in the thoughts of this 26 county government on this or many other issues. Therefore, a referendum should be called for the Irish people to reassert Irish neutrality. The Irish government have wasted a great opportunity last year to exercise active neutrality and make a contribution to the common good by being a voice for peace when they held a seat on the UN Security Council. By effectively taking sides in the conflict, it's clear how the Leinster House establishment view neutrality. The fact remains that Ireland can do more for the international community by being neutral. A neutral nation can be there to make diplomatic interventions and facilitate peace. Ireland has and still does suffer under British imperialism, and we can have no hand, act or part in subjecting other nations to the same. Thank you.